of football is about the here and now. For every defeat, there's the hope of victory next weekend. And as Manchester United proved so dramatically in the 1999 European Cup final against Bayern Munich in Barcelona, it only takes a minute to score a goal. Or in their case, two of the most important goals in the history of that famous club. But allied to the immediacy of the game is a rich past, and all true fans appreciate the importance of the game's history, particularly in an era when football is careering through radical changes on the domestic, European and world stages. But as football fans, we understand that the beauty of the game is that the exploits of 22 men over 90 minutes on the field of play will always confound those who want to see the most marketable team win. Football, like no other game, is about upsets. No matter how small your team, how mighty the opposition, you know that you have a chance. And if you do lose, well, you've always got next week and your sense of club pride and history with which to console yourself. This video looks back over a century of football. From the game's early days through to the modern era, we'll be looking at the great characters, the great players and the great games. It's a fascinating story, which I'm sure you'll enjoy.
There are many theories as to when the game of football as we now know it was first played. There is evidence of team ball games that could be the long-lost ancestor of football being played in ancient civilizations across the globe, from China to Greece, Rome to Mexico. In this country, there's a record of a game of football being played by London schoolboys in 1175, and in 1314, Edward III issued a proclamation banning football because young men were playing it rather than practicing archery. Later, the Italians developed a game called calcio, a recreation of which we can see here. And across Europe, you can still find ancient football matches played between villages and neighbouring communities. But we'll make our starting point 1848, when the first code of rules governing the game was drawn up at Cambridge University. The Football Association was founded in 1863. The FA Cup inaugurated 8 years later, and the Football League was founded at a meeting at the Royal Hotel, Manchester on April the 17th, 1888.
So, by the time we enter the 20th century, the game of association football is well established. The early Corinthians are being replaced by working-class players, and teams from the north of England are becoming the leading football powers as the public schools' influence wanes.
Because at its simplest level, football doesn't require any specialist equipment, it was accessible to the working class at the turn of the century. Indeed, how many of today's football millionaires got their first taste of the game playing in a park after school with jumpers for goalposts? Training and fitness techniques in the early years of the century were basic, as these Everton players demonstrate. Hey, you at the back, stop grinning, put some effort into it. But football was drawing huge crowds. Just look at the packed terraces for this Rangers versus Celtic Scottish Cup final. Tens of thousands turned out as well for the burgeoning Home International series. This game featured Scotland and Ireland. Football was also quickly developing on the international front. In 1902, Austria beat Hungary 5-0 in the first international match played between teams outside the home countries. On May the 21st, 1904, a world governing body for football was formed in Paris by representatives of Belgium, Denmark, France, Holland, Spain, Sweden and Switzerland. It took the name Fédération Internationale de Football Association, FIFA. England joined FIFA the next year. The sheer number of people packing into grounds at the beginning of the century led to many problems, and sometimes tragedy. At Ibrox in 1902, 25 people died when a stand collapsed during a match between Scotland and England. A capacity of Ibrox was around 80,000, but many estimates put the size of the crowd at nearer 100,000. So although it may seem comical, there was a serious side to these tests being carried out at Wembley Stadium in 1921. In 1923, those safety procedures were put to the test at the first Wembley Cup final, the game between West Ham United and Bolton Wanderers on April the 28th. The previous year, the FA Cup final at Stamford Bridge between Preston North End and Huddersfield Town had attracted a crowd of 53,000. By noon on FA Cup final day in 1923, an estimated 500,000 people were heading for the new Wembley. Some reports say that as many as 300,000 attempted to get into the ground for the game, immortalised as the White Horse Final. The sight of PC George Scory and his White Horse Billy trying to control the crowd is one of English football history's most enduring images. The official attendance for the game was 126,047, but it's possible that as many as 250,000 people were inside Wembley that day. With football drawing such huge crowds, the fans expected to be entertained with athleticism of the highest order, and you can see just how seriously these Tottenham players take their big match preparation. Of course, matches don't come much bigger than those between England and Scotland, the original international fixture. In 1927, England travelled to Glasgow, having not won on Scottish soil since a 1-0 victory in 1904. They returned with a famous 2-1 victory. However, they were made to pay when the Scots travelled to Wembley the following year and gave England a 5-1 hiding. The players emerged from the tunnel at Wembley, the opposite end to the current players' tunnel. It's an afternoon fixture, no floodlights, but the stadium's still crammed with 100,000 people.
For the troops returning from the trenches, football represented a means of getting back to normality. Everything else in their world may have changed, but football provided a constant factor. The game also provided a way out of the hardships of the Depression for thousands of young men. For some, it was a release from the rigours of life. For others, it provided a living.
In the beginning, the teams come out 2 by 2, a new custom, one of friendship. Here you see Dunn chasing the ball and McMullen chasing it outside. Hard lines, Jimmy. Some good heading, rather too much heading, if one might say so.
In 1933, Everton won their second FA Cup thanks to a 3-0 defeat of Manchester City in front of 93,000 people at Wembley. Everton's hero was legendary centre-forward Dixie Dean, who wore the number 9 shirt with pride on the day players carried numbers on their shirts for the very first time. Look at this clip carefully though, and you'll notice that Dean's opposite number wears number 14, as the players' numbers ran that day from 1 to 22.
With McMullen helping the defence, Britton a beautiful double back and a lob. Stein is the thorn in the Manchester City side, and there's Thompson making one of his sturdy tackles, but a bad finish. There's Stein scoring the first goal. Whoopee, hands across the sea, and he might have been a points policeman. Now meet the goal-getters, the Three Musketeers. Jimmy Stein got the first goal. He also scored at Leicester in the opening round. Next disappointed man in a disappointing team. Hard lines, Langford. And finally, the third of the Musketeers, with musket there, Jimmy Dunn. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very, very happy occasion, an all-Lancashire final tie. A cup final between two good sides. Dixie Dean, captain of the winning side, Everton, and Sam Carn, the trustworthy captain of the Manchester City side. An admirable sporting game between two good friends, friendly enemies, as it were.
Lancashire, here's to Lancashire. And may that cup stay in Lancashire. If Everton don't win it, may another Lancashire club win it. Here.
I'll second that, Dixie. We've got the cup in Lancashire now, and I hope the next Lancashire club that wins it is Manchester City, my club. Here's to Lancashire. And the city.
Throughout the 30s, football continued to enjoy tremendous popularity, and many matches were now captured on the Pathé newsreels of the time. Let's enjoy some of these flickering reports, recall one of English football's less distinguished moments when the national team visited Germany, and see how football remained just as popular after the conflict.
Aston Villa won the toss, and Arsenal kick off before over 60,000 people at Highbury. Over £6,000 was taken in gate money, a record receipt for the ground. In the early stages, the Arsenal was superior, but the Villa forwards were constantly giving the Arsenal supporters cause for a laugh. They continued their pressure on the Arsenal goal despite the close attention of Roberts. Astley drove in a fast shot which entered the net just inside the post. Now the Arsenal go all out in an attempt to equalise, but a few minutes before half-time, Astley passes to Houghton in midfield, who shoots at goal, hits an Arsenal back, and scores a lucky goal out of reach of Moss, the Arsenal goalkeeper.
Hampden Park, Glasgow, the turnstiles click merrily to the music of thousands of bawbees. It's Scotland against England at soccer that draws this mighty crowd of 130,000. More thousands are locked outside. The gates have to be closed and ambulance men work overtime on painting cases. It speaks volumes for the English defence that they keep the Scots out until just before half-time. But then Napier, Scotland's left winger from Celtic, takes a corner and Duncan cuts in to head Scotland's first goal. 5 minutes after the interval, the same is repeated. Duncan heads a second goal from Scotland. England are beaten by 2-0.
But to manager George Allison and a million fans, it's the happiest picture of the summer, for it means that the Arsenal and soccer are on the way again.
Well, here you see before you on the screen the playing forces of the Arsenal Football Club.
But what are playing forces without the most important man of all, trainer Tom Whittaker?
Fitness counts for anything. I rather imagine these young lads will give a very good account of themselves in the coming season. What do you think?
Oh, I think some of them are very fit now. I don't know how we're going to get them any fitter.
Well, we'll see what can be done. They all look the part, and I hope they live up to it.
So Arsenal are in training. But from this picture, it doesn't look as if they need any training. And Captain Hapgood greets the new boy, Bryn Jones, who is strengthening the Arsenal side to the tune of about £13,500. And that's the sort of thing that makes commentators want to take up soccer.
Cup final enthusiasm prevails in Berlin when England meet Germany on the soccer field. All the courtesies are observed before the start. God Save the King is played. And the English team in white shirts give the Nazi salute during the German national anthem.
"10,000 soccer fans at Stamford Bridge see Dutch, Belgian, Czech, Polish and Norwegian players in white shirts take the field when the Allied armies play against a British Army team. Considering the difficulties of language and styles of play, the Allies put up a brave game.
The really clever play of our lads sends the ball into their opponent's goal 8 times during the afternoon. Loud cheers from Chelsea. But the Allied Army team never give up trying. And although fighting a losing game, final score is 8 goals to 2, they display a fine spirit of sportsmanship. Well, as the Belgian said to the Pole, as the Czech thought the Dutchman was a Norwegian, it makes you think. 65,000 people packed the Wembley Stadium for the England-Scotland match. With the English players in white shirts, the two teams take the field for another classic contest. The Prime Minister has a handshake for each of the footballers before the start of play. The kick-off, and England and Scotland are fighting each other at last. German papers, please copy. The Englishmen are quickly on the attack, with the Scotsmen putting up a stiff resistance. It's really like old times again. Long before half-time, it's obvious that the English team is the stronger. Scotland put in several storming raids, but their successes are short-lived. And Mr. Churchill studies the play as if it were Adolf chasing Muzzo around the Brenner Pass. And here's one of the 2 English goals scored in the first half. The Scottish supporters find life just a little hard right now. And that's how the scoreboard looks at the end of play. England 2 beats Scotland, no score. They must be thinking about the war. From the Pathé newsplane, Wembley Stadium looks packed to capacity with a 6-figure up-for-the-cup crowd as Derby County and Charlton Athletic wait to be presented to His Majesty the King. Here comes goal number 1. Dally Duncan miskicks and Charlton's Bert Turner kicks through his own goal. A stroke of luck for Derby. It sent the crowd goal crazy. With a 1-0 lead, the Derby white shirts piled on the pressure. But within a minute, Charlton hit back and Bert Turner wiped off his slip-up with a free kick equaliser. This time, a Derby player knocked the ball into his own net. 1-1 and 5 minutes to go. And are the customers glad they got a ticket? Both sides played magnificent soccer. End of time and it's 1-1. And there's 30 minutes extra play. And Derby gets away to an all-out left-to-right assault on the Charlton goal. The King and Queen and the Earl of Athlone watch a great cup final. And here's Derby's second, a picture goal by red-headed inside left Peter Doherty. Once in front, these boys take some stopping, and they're putting out the flags in Derby already. With a 2-1 lead, it's a new kind of Derby day, and here's another. Centre-forward Stamp nets Derby's number 3, and does it get applause? For the second half of extra time, Charlton defend the left-hand goal. And it's in again, with goalie Sam Bartram beaten after a grand dive. And every Derby hat goes into the air for a 4-1 victory. Beaten in 3 cup finals, Derby County knots their first win, and skipper Jack Nicholas gets a royal handshake and the coveted silver trophy. A great game, and a great team won it in football's best ever comeback to peacetime cup finals.
The war robbed many of the nation's best players, such as Tom Finney, of their finest years in the game. Yet, as we entered the 1950s, England was convinced that this was the beginning of a golden age. In 1953, a Union Jack flew from the top of Everest. The Ashes were back at Lord's. The coronation of Queen Elizabeth II sent a message around the world that the empire was still strong, that the bulldog still had teeth. In terms of football, the dream of international supremacy was shattered here at Wembley late in 1953. But 13 years after that, England ruled the world.
England in white shirts take the field with their Hungarian opponents at Wembley. 100,000 people put up the houseful notice as the visitors, recognized as the best side in Europe, immediately swing to the attack.
That Hungarian side of the 50s was one of the truly great teams in world football. With players such as Puskás, Szybor and Hidekuti, and an attacking 4-2-4 system with two wingers, they were too good for a strong England team. Hungary inflicted the first home defeat on England by a team outside the British Isles.
3-1 to the visitors. Comeback fighting. Alf Ramsey has it. He draws the defence before flicking it to Matthews on the wing. The little wizard whips it into the centre, where Mortensen gives Grosics a spot of work. Mortensen to Jackie Sewell, and as cool as they come, he bangs it into the visitors' net for the equaliser. But don't make any mistake, these Hungarians didn't win the Olympics final or their second-to-none reputation for nothing. Here they go again, with some of the most perfect teamwork ever seen on the green grass of Wembley. Bosic takes a free kick, and Puskás finishes the job. 4-1 now. It certainly looks all over for the Englishman, but now Sewell takes command, teaming up with Maestro Matthews. Rob's header sends Grosics sprawling to save. That's the stuff to raise English hopes. But it's Stan Mortensen's low drive that chalks up another one on England's account. 2-4 it stays up to half-time. But that's not good enough for Hungary. Centre-half Laurent is after it. Laurent returns to the centre. Puskás has it. Puskás to Kocsis, whose header hits the post. From the wing, Bosic cracks home Hungary's 5th goal. But the massacre isn't over yet. Hidekuti, already scored 2, makes it a hat-trick. England, down but not out, come back to try and crack Hungary's Iron Curtain defence. Leading the attack is human dynamo Stan Mortensen. But Grosics brings him down. The Dutch referee won't stand for rugby tactics, so it's a penalty to England. Alf Ramsey takes it, and it's in the net! And that's how it stays up to the finish. By 6 goals to 3, Hungary, the most brilliant team ever to visit Britain, shatter the unbeaten home record England has held in 90 years of football.
The Duke of Edinburgh meets the boys from Blackpool at Wembley before their cup final battle with Bolton Wanderers. From the royal box, Her Majesty the Queen watches the Duke shake hands with the white-shirted Wanderers.
1953, perhaps the greatest FA Cup final of them all. It wasn't just because Blackpool came back from 3-1 down to win the game 4-3 with 2 goals in the final 2 minutes, but because Blackpool's Stanley Matthews captured the imagination of the great British public. His quest for an FA Cup winner's medal at the 3rd time of asking at the age of 38. Matthews had a fantastic game on the right wing. Despite the fact that Stan Mortensen scored a hat-trick, that 1953 Cup final will always belong to the other Stanley. It will forever be known as the Matthews final.
Bolton have drawn first blood within 90 seconds. Bolton keep up the pressure, and Blackpool defence seem far from confident now. But Shimwell gets it clear of the goal and manages to force a way through the attackers. Blackpool back, Garrett sends it up to Lofthouse, who shoots, but it hits the upright. In comes Bill Moyer, but he too cannot penetrate the defence. Moyer, Fenton and Goalie Farm scramble for it, but Fenton gets it out of danger. Blackpool swing into action again, and are soon down by the Bolton goal. Stan Mortensen has a slam, and in it goes. Blackpool have got the equaliser. Now Stanley Matthews takes over. He passes, but there's no goal this time, as goalie Hansen clears it away and starts a Bolton counter-attack. Eric Bell, who injured his leg earlier on, gallantly struggles after it and manages to pass it back to Langton. Langton shoots, but Farm makes a good save, and Blackpool breathe again. Bolton have looked the better team right the way through the first half. In the Blackpool goal, Farm faces a shot from Langton. He and Lofthouse miss. And there's another one. Bolton are 2, Blackpool still 1. Into the second half, and Blackpool begin to show some of the skill we expect of them. Stan Matthews is after it, and off he goes with a dazzling display that proves he's as good as ever he was. As he centres, Mortensen gets out of the way to let Perry shoot, but it's wide of the net. Now the Wanderers get their forward machine moving again. From the right wing, Douglas Holden centres, and despite his injury, Eric Bell heads it in for Bolton's third goal. 3-1, looks all over for Blackpool. As unworried as ever, Matthews sends over a beautifully placed centre. Goalkeeper Hansen tries to check it, but Stan Mortensen forces it in. Bolton 3, Blackpool 2. Mortensen's hurt his right leg, but wild horses couldn't keep him off the pitch at this stage of the game. Douglas Holden leads the Wanderers on an offensive. Up near the goal mouth, Lofthouse gets on with the good work. Lofthouse centres, but Goalie Farm is there to deal with the situation this time. His clearance upfield sets his teammates on another attack. There's a foul. One of the players took quite a knock, and the ref awards Blackpool a free kick. Mortensen takes it. He's done it. It's in. Blackpool and Bolton are on even terms with 3 goals apiece. Matthews again, giving the game everything he's got. In the Bolton goal, Hansen gets ready for work. The great little wizard has it again. A flick to centre finds Perry, who crashes it home into the Bolton net. Blackpool 4, Bolton 3. There's no doubt about it now. Matthews, recently ignored by the England selectors, is the man of the match. What a great reception he gets from all at Wembley as the whistle goes. Matthews, in his 3rd cup final, is the hero of the day. Her Majesty the Queen rises to greet the 2 teams and to award the cup. And here come the winners, gallant Blackpool, who turned what seemed defeat into one of the most dramatic victories ever seen at Wembley. Their captain, Harry Johnston, receives the most coveted football trophy of them all. A royal congratulation for Stanley Matthews, and a winner's medal at long last are fitting rewards for the most dazzling sportsman in world soccer. The Queen waves a last farewell to the crowds as Harry Johnston and Stanley Matthews take the cup to Blackpool.
Six months ago at Wembley, the Hungarians kicked our football where it hurt. They were the first continental team to beat us in England in 90 years. Special medals were struck for them when they got home, so great was their triumph. In one match, they had taken the lead in world football. Back in London, managers gathered from all over the country. With Sir Stanley Rouse, the FA chairman, they were to thrash out the whole problem. But sad to relate, little seems to have been done since. The managers, say some critics, put cash before country. But business is business, and they can hardly be blamed for not cutting the league programme to allow their stars to train for the English team. Few players, with the exception of masters like Matthews, combine individual skill with the ability to work with a team of comparative strangers. So that kind of training is vital. Tommy Harmer, the young Spurs inside forward, takes his cue from the Hungarians. Practice and yet more practice, he believes, is the only way of mastering the ball. Such skill in itself is not enough, says ex-England captain Joe Mercer. He believes in catching them young so that ball control becomes instinctive. When that's done, it's tactical training from then on. Joe Mercer sums up his theories.
Well, of course, you fellas, if you're going to be footballers, you've definitely got to practice hard and acquire skill. The ability to trap a ball no matter what direction it comes from, to be able to kick a ball immediately to any given part of the field, and to do all the things that Stan Matthews and Tommy Finney and Tommy Lawton and great players like that seem to do naturally.
Over to the People's Stadium, Budapest, where the Hungarians put the skill plus teamwork formula into practice, a formula that brings goals. Watch Puskás in action.
English football was rocked by the 6-3 Wembley defeat by the mighty Magyars in November 1953. When Walter Winterbottom's team travelled to Budapest in May 1954, things got even worse.
But after half-time at Budapest, Ivor Brodis tried it and a handsome reward was his, England's only goal. After England's poor display against Yugoslavia, their forward line was changed. Now the skill was there, but still they lacked coordination. As for accuracy, watch this. A perfect chance missed by yards. Hidikuti shows how it should be done. Speed, accuracy, skill and teamwork. The Hungarians had them all. 7 times they hammered nails into England's coffin. The body can only be resurrected by courage and determination by all in English football.
At least Stan Cullis's great Wolves side restored some battered English pride when they defeated Honved 3-2 in a friendly at Molineux. That Honved side contained 5 of the players who'd beaten England 7-1 in Budapest and was arguably one of the best club sides ever.
Makos leads the visitors upfield, but Williams is there. Shorthouse takes up the running. The Hungarians seem to settle down first on the mud pie pitch. Now they're off on the raid that brings the first incident of the match. Budai, number 7, and Flowers give chase. The ball wraps Flowers' hand and referee Griffiths awards a free kick to Hungary. Did he handle it or didn't he? No time to argue now, for Puskas takes the kick and Coxis heads it home. 1 goal down, Wolves hit back. Flowers kicks upfield, but only to start a movement by the Honved machine. So far, the visitors seem to have control of the game, but the Wolves often take some time to warm up. Now Shorthouse and Swinburne swing play round and head for Honved's goal. Swinburne must score, but Farrago saves the day. Honved are off again. The ball goes to Coxis, on to Makos, Billy Wright's in pursuit. 2-0 now after that great goal by Makos. Wolves are in real trouble, and now Budai has it. Into the centre where goalie Williams fights desperately to keep the Wolves' net clear. 2-0 is the half-time score. Honved set the ball rolling, but soon there's an indication of things to come, for it's Wolves who get possession. Away they go along the left wing with a determined attack. Smith shoots, but the ball shaves the post on the wrong side. That shows that Honved's defence isn't impregnable. Wolves right back Stewart sets his team off once more. Now incident number 2 as Kovacs obstructs Hancox in the penalty area. A penalty, says the ref, and Hancox takes it. 2-1, and Wolves are coming back with a vengeance. Now out to the left wing. Wilshaw to Swinburne, who makes no mistake with a header into the net. 2-2. 2 minutes later, and Smith races down the left wing. Then he makes a perfect pass to Swinburne, who cracks in his second goal. The goal that makes the final score 3-2 to the Happy Wanderers. Wolves have licked the greatest club side in the world. Manchester United are at home to Real Madrid in the second leg of the European Cup semi-final. They have a tough job in their hands, for the white-shirted Spaniards already have a 2-goal lead from the first leg. So the Red Devils need a 3-goal margin today for an overall victory. From the start, the crowds are treated to a sparkling display of football. Here's Madrid on the attack. Centre forward Stefano shoots, but goalie Wood tips it round. The French referee is kept busy, for play's pretty rough at times. In the Madrid goal, Lismaes heads away. A neat overhead kick starts Madrid on the move, and like a flash, they're up the other end with winger Copa beating Wood for a goal. The Madrid end again. Bill Whelan tries a hook, and Marquitos gives away a corner. A beautiful save by goalie Alonso. And another. The Red Devils keep up the attack, but they can't press it home. And when Madrid break out, inside left Real shows how it should be done. So Madrid are leading 2-0 at half-time, but after the interval, Manchester really start getting down to work. Left winger Pegg has the ball. He centres, it bounces off Taylor, and Whelan makes sure of it. So the Red Devils have reduced the gap. But they'd need 4 more goals to take them on to the final, and the quick-moving, quick-thinking Spaniards make that altogether too much to hope. As the pace grows hotter, manners are forgotten by both teams, and bad tempers mar the game. Manchester score once more, but that's all they can manage. There's an ugly scene when Torres falls after colliding with left-winger Peg. Manchester try to carry him off, and Madrid to pull him back. It's a pity that such behaviour on both sides should spoil the brilliant football which gave Real Madrid their semi-final victory. On the fringe of a Munich airport lies the wreckage of an airliner, still smouldering from a crash in which 21 people were killed.
February the 6th, 1958, a date that will forever be remembered in football. Shortly after 3 o'clock on that afternoon, an Elizabethan airliner carrying Manchester United home from their European Cup quarter-final success in Belgrade crashed on takeoff. It stopped to refuel at Munich airport. 23 people lost their lives in the accident, including 7 players from one of the greatest club sides the game has ever known, the Busby Babes.
They were on top of the world. Their 3-goal draw with Yugoslavia's Red Star team had put them through to the European Cup semi-finals. They had high hopes of the English FA Cup. Now those hopes are snuffed out, like the lives of 7 of their finest players. 3 days before, the press had carried pictures of a confident team leaving for Belgrade. Pictures which remind us that with them were 8 of the North's finest sporting journalists who would never see home again. Remember Matt Busby leading his Babes onto the Wembley turf for the Cup final that brilliant day last spring? Roger Byrne, in the plain shirt, skippered them against Aston Villa. United were already league champions, and that day they came within an ace of bringing off the double. Here's Manchester winger John Berry beating his man and passing to Tommy Taylor. A fine pair there. Luck was against United when an accidental collision with Villa's McParland robbed them of goalie Ray Wood in the 7th minute. McParland soon recovered, but Ray Wood had to be carried off for a time. His place in goal was taken by Jackie Blanchflower, and splendid, for Matt Busby trained his players to be versatile. Being a man short didn't prevent United from attacking again and again. Tommy Taylor was in there fighting, and Eddie Coleman too. Ray Wood soon came back to play on the right wing, and his colleagues concentrated on the left to give him a chance to recover. They kept up the pressure on the Villa goal, where a lesser man than goalie Sims would have been overwhelmed. Bill Whelan and Roger Byrne show Manchester United tactics at their best. Manchester's only goal came from a corner which Duncan Edwards fed to Tommy Taylor for a magnificent header into the top of the net. Aston Villa won by a 1-goal margin, but Busby's Babes had nothing to be ashamed of. They had lost to the only side in history to win the FA Cup 7 times. No one could guess the tragedy that awaited the runners-up less than a year later. Duncan Edwards injured, Bill Fuchs injured. Mark Jones killed. Ray Wood injured. Eddie Coleman killed. David Pegg killed. Dennis Viollet injured, Tommy Taylor killed. Roger Byrne killed. Bill Whelan killed, John Berry injured. At the time of going to press, Matt Busby was fighting for his life. The team secretary, Walter Crickler, was killed. Manchester, from the moment the news came through, was a city in mourning. Newspapers sold as fast as they could be printed. It was as though every family in a city of 750,000 people had suffered a personal loss, and so indeed they had. At Old Trafford, the saddest football ground in the world, the flags flew at half-mast. And on hundreds of other football grounds, other flags were being dipped in sympathy. For this disaster is perhaps the most tragic single blow British sport has ever suffered. 100,000 people in weather that's more like summer than spring pack Wembley Stadium to watch the biggest game of the year, Bolton Wanderers in the dark shorts battling with Manchester United for the FA Cup.
Remarkably, the remnants of the team, backed by a huge wave of public sympathy, made it to the FA Cup final later that year, where they met Bolton Wanderers.
United skipper Bill Fowkes presents the team which, after the Munich tragedy, very few people expected to reach the final. Holden takes it. It's headed out and Ray Parry brings it back. He centres, but Stan Crowther's there. He clears, but Edwards returns it and Lofthouse runs in for a lightning goal. Up the Manchester end again with Bolton moving in fast. Dennis Stevens shoots. Greg parries, but Nat Lofthouse charges in, and there's Bolton's second goal. It's a proud Nat Lofthouse who receives the precious trophy from Prince Philip. For not only has Nat skippered the winning team, but he scored both goals himself. Still, he'd be the first to admit that it was brilliant teamwork that did it. No Roman emperor returning with his army from a successful campaign ever had such a welcome as Nat Lofthouse and his triumphant team bring the FA Cup home to Bolton for the first time in 29 years. Nobody thinks of working at a time like this. The whole of Bolton's out on the streets to cheer the conquering heroes home. When the team reached the town hall, it's just like the brave days of the 20s when the Wanderers won the cup 3 times in 7 years. Perhaps this is the beginning of another run of victories. Everyone in Bolton believes it is anyway. It's some time before skipper and champion goalscorer Nat Lofthouse can make himself heard, but Nat doesn't give up easily.
On behalf of the lads and myself, thanks a lot. Thank you.
5 years ago, the Wanderers came home from Wembley after losing narrowly to Blackpool, and the town welcomed them back with kindly sympathy. No need for sympathy today.
Eintracht and fabulous Real Madrid in white took the field on a never-to-be-forgotten evening at Hampden Park. Pfaff beat Saraga in the toss, giving the Germans the choice of ends.
The dominant force in Europe in the 50s was the amazing Real Madrid team. They won the European Cup an incredible 5 times in succession between 1956 and 1960. Their finest game was in the 1960 final against Eintracht Frankfurt in front of 135,000 people at Hampden Park, Glasgow. Let's look at that and some other memorable moments in the early 1960s.
Di Stefano banged it home. Analysed in slow motion is another Madrid goal. A good pass found the brilliant Puskás. The Hungarian marvel made it 5-1. The unstoppable Puskás now got goal number 6. Stein scored, but Real Madrid won 7-3. Suddenly, Bobby Smith seized his chance. Goal! Spurs' unrelenting pressure brought reward again. The ball was centred. Dyson headed a great goal. Spurs had won the fabulous double. Danny Blanchard and his men have earned the right to be called the team of the century.
A celebration at Wembley of the 100th anniversary of the Football Association. The centenary is marked by the match of the century, England versus the rest of the world. The great Di Stefano left and Jimmy Armfield lead their men onto the field. Never before, perhaps, has such an array of talent been assembled for one match. The veteran Lev Yashin of Russia will keep goal in the opening period. Hjalmar Santos, Brazil, right back, no stranger to Wembley. A star of Portugal, the famous Eusebio, inside left. And a familiar name and face at inside right, Denis Law. A pass in the middle finds Denis Law. He eludes Banks and scores the equaliser. Charlton shoots, Suskic fumbles, and now watch Jimmy Greaves, 3 minutes from full time. That was certainly a match worthy of the centenary of the FA. The president, Sir Stanley Rouse, and officials of FIFA, the International Football Federation, met at a London hotel to make the draw for the World Cup competition. A representative of the Brazil FA returned the World Cup his country holds to the keeping of FIFA.
Whether they will leave it here permanently or just temporarily will be seen in July.
This World Cup had everything: intrigue, drama, and an England victory. The World Cup was stolen before the competition began, while it was on show in London. The thief demanded a ransom for its safe return, but his plot was thwarted by a dog called Pickles that found the Jules Rimet trophy while out for a walk with his owner David Corbett.
But it's turkey or nothing these days. The champ had something to impress David Corbett, though: a reward cheque for £1,000 presented by the club to Pickles and his owner for their part in recovering football's most coveted award.
On to the Wembley Arena, where so much football history has been made. England and Portugal came out for the other semi-final. Better opponents could not have been imagined. After 31 minutes, Pereira only half cleared. The ball went to Bobby Charlton, and Eusebio in action again. By clever marking by Nobby Stiles, he had so far been kept out of shooting range. Now came an outstanding moment. Geoff Hurst in possession. Across to Bobby Charlton. Another great goal. Portugal quickly retaliated. A floated centre deceived Banks. Jackie Charlton handled the ball away. England had won 2-1. What a moment for Bobby Moore, captain of England in their first ever World Cup semi-final, and for the great Bobby Charlton. His goals had taken England into the final. Eusebio wept as he left the field. Congratulations to England. 11 good sportsmen whom Alf Ramsey welded into a great team.
Let's relive again England's finest hour.
Exchanging international compliments and meeting the referee, Dienst of Switzerland. You might call this the moment of truth for Alf Ramsey. The West German attack had bite and purpose. On they came again. An English defensive lapse gave the ball to Haller, and that was it. One down after 12 minutes spurred the English attack. This time a chance came to West Ham's Geoff Hurst. It's the equaliser! Play was faithfully reflected by the score, 1-1 at half-time. It's there! Peters has scored! For the Wembley thousands and the millions at home, one thought: victory. Germany would not let up. Then second. It had to be extra time. The first period of extra time proved to the full the value of Ramsey's training methods. England began with a vigour and speed astounding after the gruelling 90 minutes they'd already played. Charlton and his fellow sharpshooters came back time after time in the Ramsey spirit, believing that with sustained attack the goals must come. Then Geoff Hurst, cool and collected, had the ball in the net. No, it bounced out. Goal claimed England. No goal, protested the Germans. The referee consulted the linesman, who'd been in line with the posts, and goal it was. When there was only a minute to go, England still had no thought of being content with that one-goal lead. Racing to beat the whistle, Geoff Hurst saw an opening in the defence and achieved the hat-trick. Moore led England up to the Royal Box to receive the Jules Rimet Cup and the winners' medals. To be here as winners of the FA Cup has often been described as the summit of a footballer's ambition. How much greater was the triumph they enjoyed now. Into his gallant team, England manager Alf Ramsey instilled sportsmanship first and foremost. How well they applied his teaching. May we, in 1970, be represented by a team of sportsmen as good as these winners of the World Cup.